Hello, friends. My name is Katie Caldwell, and thank you all so much for joining us for today's conversation with women in sports, presented by Hermitage, the Design Center. Today, we continue to celebrate Gender Equality Month in the NHL. We encourage you all to share your experience and photos of today's event on social media. Be sure to tag us at Preds NHL. Today, we will dive into topics including the path each panelist took to end up where they are, which standout experiences enabled their professional growth, and what advice they would give to young female professionals looking to make a name for themselves in a male-prevalent industry. Before we begin and I introduce today's panelists, we wanted to share that our friends at Hermitage, the Design Center, are including all of today's attendees in an Enter to Win Smashville experience. This includes 4 tickets to an upcoming Preds game and a Nashville Predators prize pack. Winners will be sent an email following today's event, so be sure to stay tuned for that. I am now thrilled to introduce you to our panel this morning, starting with Michelle Kennedy, the COO of the Nashville Predators and Bridgestone Arena. We're lucky enough to have her not only speak on the panel today, but co-MC this event with me. Next, we're happy to be joined by Kristene Kelly, the Deputy Student Athlete Director at Vanderbilt University. Just give a little wave. Delaney Collins, former Team Canada player, Hockey Canada coach, and 2-time world champion. Shout out Team Canada. Cristina Maillo Belda. Cristina is the VP of Communications at Nashville SC. And finally, we're pleased to be joined by Ashlee Stokely, the Senior Director of Stadium Events and Experience for the Tennessee Titans. To get started, we've prepared a few questions for our panelists, so I'll now hand it off to the Nashville Predators COO, Michelle Kennedy, to kick things off for us.
Thank you, Katie. And you forgot Ashlee's biggest claim to fame. She is a Smashville alumnus.
Smashly
Very
here.
important.
Guys, thank you so much for being here. And for those of you out in the audience, I was just saying to these guys before we started broadcasting, I was blown away by how many questions you submitted, by the obvious interest that you have in this. And so we don't begin to have time to get to all the questions you guys submitted. So we will figure out a way to get some of those answers to you guys, whether it's part 2 or Q&A or something. But I just want to thank all the panelists first. And I want to thank all of you for being so engaged in this process. So thanks to all of you for being here. And let's jump right in. I think it's an appropriate start for this because of what we've all dealt with in the last year. I'm going to ask each of the panelists to chime in with how has the COVID-19 pandemic shifted your normal days, and how have you and your organizations accommodated that in a very, very unusual set of circumstances in all industries, but particularly in ours. So Ashlee, I see you bobbing your head, so I'm going to let you dive in and get us started.
Yeah, when I think about that question, in a very bizarre way, I think that it was healthy to just stop for a second and specifically here and take an opportunity. While everything, we can only control what we can control here. So I think that understanding that and trying to find some normalcy in that, and then just focusing in, hey, this is a great opportunity to kind of stop, reevaluate the way that we have been doing things, and what do we want to do moving forward. Now, granted, it's obviously looking a lot different and we're having to think differently, but I think in some very weird way, it was great to have an opportunity to really look at everything that we were doing as an organization and say, hey, we've got some time here to think about this and redo some things in an effort to enhance the guest experience, enhance our client experience. There was so much that I don't think in the pace that this industry is, which is go, 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 don't look back. I think you don't have that opportunity to stop and really think, hey, are we doing this the best that we can? So not to be positive about it, but I think that is the approach that I personally took, and I think the organization took, in that, hey, let's really value the time that we have to just hone in on what we're doing and make it better and the best that we can considering the circumstances.
Yeah, it's great input. Kristene, tell me about, first of all, it's very nice to meet you. Candace has told me a whole lot about you, and so I'm excited to put a face with a name. So thanks for being here, and it's great to meet you.
You too,
how
Michelle.
have you and Vanderbilt dealt with the same
So what I will say, and to the panel, so thank you for having me this morning. I'm excited to actually step in for my lovely Vice Chancellor, Candace Lee, but I've only been here 6 months. So when the pandemic began, I was actually at Dartmouth College in New Hampshire, and I was literally just promoted a week prior into overseeing all of our varsity sports. So here I am, fresh into this new role and getting calls to go across campus to talk about how are we going to send our students home? I mean, it literally went from, okay, you're not going to be able to play in states that have a state of emergency to we're not playing at all to you need to leave campus immediately. I mean, this all happened over the course of probably 3 or 4 days. So in between all of that, and believe it or not, I was also commuting an hour to work. So similar to what Ashlee said, it gave me an opportunity to stop and to just kind of take a breath, realize where we are, what we're doing. And it also allowed us to realize we could do our work differently, that yes, Zooms are okay. All of us didn't really understand Zoom at the moment, but we realized that we were able to do it. But I think initially our focus was more about our students and making sure they were safe and making sure they were able to get home. So similar to Dartmouth, very similar to Vanderbilt being high academic institutions, our students aren't from the locale. So having to get students back out home, back home to all parts of the country and all parts of the world where people had, their borders were closed, there were states of emergencies, they couldn't get home, and trying to work through all of that. So I think that was our initial process and working through that. And then also supporting our staff. What could we do? How can we continue to have conversations and be engaged without being face-to-face? Because we are in a face-to-face business. The thing that we do is it's very social, we're very relational. So making those changes. And then the last thing I would say is knowing and understanding and appreciating the unknown. We just did not know. We had to make the best decisions we could based on the information we had at the moment. And that changed literally minute by minute. So I think that was the hard part, but also a good part of recognizing for us to be nimble, but also making adjustments as need be.
And all these things these were issues of first impression. No, we had never in our lifetimes, in our careers, and hopefully we never will have to again, dealt with anything like that. And so that there was no template to follow, made all that you're saying much more challenging. Cristina, how about you and the Nashville soccer? How have you guys dealt with these same sorts of issues?
So we were in a very unique situation because unlike every other team in the city or organization in the city, we were brand new, we were the babies. So we had just hosted 60,000 people at Nissan Stadium on February 29th, and all of a sudden we're going to shut down and the world stops, and we're like, okay, I guess that's our inaugural season. What are we doing now? So trying to keep that momentum and continue to engage with our fans, with our audiences was relatively challenging as we went through it. But most importantly, as a new organization, we went from a team of 20 people a year prior into a team of over 100 employees. And all of a sudden, we're all dispersed and trying not only to deliver on our day-to-day operation, but also trying to find out how to continue to communicate and be efficient, which is already hard enough when you're starting a new team face-to-face. So the challenge of being apart literally was something that we encountered through the year. But I think resilience was something that we saw at many levels of the organizations, from the team all the way to the staff, is how we were able to adapt to the realities that were coming our way and have an open mind into this is the new way of working. This is how we need to improve our communication channels and give a call more often than not in order for us to be connected. And also we have a very young staff. Sports is well known for having very young people who sometimes live on their own. They don't have that. They felt, a lot of our employees felt somehow lonely or all of a sudden locked into their own world. So not only tapping into the day-to-day operations and how to ensure and communicate with people as to this is what we need to do to get the job done, but also ensuring that people were okay and that people were doing fine and that they were able to go through the hardship of a pandemic on their own So there was a lot of camaraderie that grew with it, that in a way I'm grateful in or trying to find the positives of the pandemic and the realities we went through. I don't think we as an organization would be as advanced in the way we work together as if we have been without a pandemic and just moving with the flow of a normal season.
Great commentary. Delaney, I don't start many days with an Olympian and world champion, so I'm going to sit up a little straighter when I address you. and you have a very Olympic-looking background. You look like you're in a Hall of Fame or something. So
there's a lot of
very appropriate. So tell us about how you've dealt with the pandemic and how it's affected your normal life.
Sure. Well, I think mine was intense. On March 23rd, 2020, I gave birth to my daughter. So right at the beginning of the pandemic, and I did that at the age of 42 in a new city. So, not a lot of family around. Everything was new. Everything was intense that first year, obviously teething, crying, diaper changes, all of that stuff. So I went from being a hockey coach full-time and so focused on my sport and my craft to being a mom in a pandemic. And that was really intense. But it was wonderful. It was a game changer for sure. So, I'm going to be totally honest. I took some time to step away from hockey. So I just felt with all the stress for the first time in my life, I was going to dig deep and ask myself for the courage to step away. So I was off the ice for 7 months, and it was hard, but I felt that that's what I needed to do. And being away from hockey made me fall in love with it again. It made me look back now, start to watch NHL games, rewatch videotapes from Olympic finals, and totally reinvent myself in terms of how I approach coaching and how I approach skill development and working with kids, and reignite my love for hockey. So it ended up working out well for me, but it was definitely an interesting year for me.
Well, congratulations, a new baby, big year. And that's, I think the thing that rang true in all of those responses is that the positives that people took out of this last year. I mean, it's very, very easy to gravitate to, oh my gosh, 2020, let's just try to erase it from our collective memories. But I think it's great that each of you answered in a way that, we've said from the beginning of this, we're going to come out on the other end a better organization than at the beginning. And I hear that in all that you guys are saying about that. And I think it's awesome to be able to take the positives out of what was a really, really challenging year. And maybe that's just a shout out to Heather and Claire for picking the right panelists. But. All right, so so these next questions I'm gonna address to one person. If any of the others of you have anything to sprinkle in, certainly do. But Cristina, I'm gonna address this one to you. In your career, not just now, because as you said, you're a relative newcomer to Vanderbilt, but in your career, what have you seen from females or from males, quite frankly, to advance in the company? I know that this is built around women in sports and the presumptive challenges that exist in that space. So what have you seen throughout your career that you think would be helpful to individuals in this forum?
So one of the things that I do have to acknowledge just right out the gate is obviously Candice Lee, who is, one of 5 female athletic directors within the Power 5. And then she's only one of 2 Black female ADs. So that in itself, I have to, absolutely acknowledge that with Candice. But in addition to that, it's really a paradigm shift in thinking. In the past, there were women only do these things, or women don't do sports. I mean, we could talk about everything that's going on with the NCAA right now and a lot of the debates back and forth between the strength and conditioning and the different types of activities and events that are provided for the men versus the women. That's not the panel for this. I won't talk a whole lot about that. But historically speaking, the way the progression was, you were a coach, you became an AD. Most coaches were men, so they became right into ADs, and that was that. Whereas where we are now, women are actually, we believe it or not, we can actually lead. Can you believe that? And, as that has started to change a little bit, we've seen people who are more concerned with budgets and fundraising and development as opposed to just being a coach. I've never coached, but here I am sitting as a deputy athletic director at a Power 5 institution. I don't have to coach to be able to know how to run a department, or to say, if I only have $1, I can't spend $1.50. It's pretty basic math, right? I would also like to recognize Clark Lee. As you know, he's a native Nashvilleian, and he is our new head football coach. And one of the things that he's done, he's been intentional in his hiring. So on his staff, there are 11 women that are on our football staff right now. That would not have been the case probably 5 years ago. So when you see that uptick, I think it's important for us to recognize that, and that type of mindset permeates throughout our department. And I think you're starting to see it throughout the NCAA, or just women in sports in general. But for those of us who are in positions of influence and have that, positional authority, we need to be able to hire women who are qualified. Don't get me wrong, you hire the qualified person. However, as women, if we have the opportunity to hire other women, that's what we need to do. And that's what's going to change that paradigm. So those are just a few of the things I can say historically that has guided my career, but also where I am right now at Vanderbilt, and proud to be here and know that we are on the cutting edge of changing what women in sports look like.
That's awesome. I think I want to say one thing on the springboard off of a comment that you made. I think the key to having women in candidate pools is believing that there's nothing wrong with women. I mean, I'm partly moderating today because when I'm on women in sports panels, I always say, don't worry about what you are. I mean, be a dedicated employee, be diligent, be hardworking. And it doesn't matter. And that's what my career has been like. And maybe I've landed in the right places and gotten lucky and worked with and for people who see it the same way. But those of you who are sitting out there wondering how to sit here, just do it. Don't think that there's any glass ceiling. There isn't. There just isn't. So I will now deflect to someone else because I can really get on a roll about this.
Michelle, can I add one thing really quickly? I just wanted to share for the young women that are on this call that are listening in, apply for the job. Too many times women, we sit back and we look at the criteria and we say, I only have this, this, and this, as opposed to all of these things, so I'm not going to apply. I will guarantee you men will apply for every job, regardless if they have the experience or not. So apply for the job. And I just wanted to chime in since Michelle just made that point. Thank you, Michelle.
No, and Kristen, that's amazing, because that was one of the lines that I was going to share. And I was fascinated to read that a few years back and sit back and realize it's true. Like, I'm not applying for this job. I am so self-conscious of I'm not gonna be enough. I'm not gonna be able to succeed. And needless, I knew that, yes, you will. You will find a way. You will learn the job and you will succeed. So take the risk, take the challenge, and take on the opportunity. Don't think that again, jobs evolved when you join them. So I will definitely encourage everybody to follow Kristen's advice, because it's so true.
I think it's a gut check too. Like, you know that you can do something, and it's not about being so overly confident that you're not ready to learn more. But when you just know that's what you want, go after it. To Michelle's point, just do it. That when you said that, Michelle, that is exactly how I feel when we start talking about things like this. Like, don't not do it, do it. And then when you get in there, continue to learn, because, and once you stop learning, then you've got an issue, but just get in there, keep going. There's not, and to Michelle's point, I kind of feel lucky in the organizations that I've worked for, but at the same time, I've earned it. I've learned it. I've earned it. I continue to grow. So I think that's really important.
Delaney, I'm coming to you next, so you can sprinkle in anything on this one, but I've got you're up next. So mentors, have you had mentors? How important do you think mentors are in achieving what it is that you set out to do in an industry that is factually, not in my mind, but factually male dominated?
Sure. Yeah, I have a few mentors. One in particular would be Mel Davidson. So Mel was my coach when I played on Team Canada. And, we had an interesting relationship because she released me from a couple of Olympic teams, but I was still sprinkled in with the World Championships and on the team, off the team. But we as I retired from hockey, she hired me on as an assistant coach with our 22 national team, and then our under 18 national team, and eventually a head coach with our U18 national team. But I realized that she is a champion because of who she is as a person. So she has either been an assistant coach for the women's Olympic team, a head coach for the women's Olympic team, or the general manager of the women's Olympic team. All of those are gold medals. So she'll be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame, I'm pretty sure, very soon. But she is wonderful. So the first thing she told me when I started coaching was to align myself with other females and to work with females, to not have that resistance between females, to not gravitate towards men and figure out how to, align myself with men. Instead, use the resources. There's so many good females. We have to work together. It's already a tough enough road. So make sure we stick together there. And that was really important. And then the other thing she told me, and this sticks with me, as a mentor, she checks in every so often, but make sure that I am true to myself. I was a really good hockey player. I'm an incredible coach. I'm animated on the bench. I'm dramatic with the kids, but I have so much knowledge, and to not just be plain Jane, use my personality, be infectious. And so I've really carried that true. I'm fun on the ice. I'm funny. I'm intense. I'm a lot of different things, but I get to be myself because I was inspired by my mentor, who has a number of Olympic gold medals to her name. But working with the Nashville Predators, I skills coach for our U19 girls team, and Callie Singletary, I would consider her a mentor right now as well. She's been excellent, just letting me come out after giving birth, post-pregnancy, and get on the ice and kind of relearn and feel things out there. And we have a revolving relationship where we're giving information, taking information. But the mentor-mentee relationship is critical. I love having just being on this call inspires me so much. I'm so interested in working with females, but it is critical.
Well, your mentor would be very proud because you do use that infectious enthusiasm. You are impossible not to smile around. We call that in our organization, I think our likeness to that is that we're unapologetically irreverent. We're going to do it our way. It's going to be fun. It's going to look different sometimes. And I think that you fit right in with your own brand of unapologetic irreverence.
Thank you.
Anybody else on mentors before we move on to the next one?
I'll say something. I actually, obviously, as you can tell by my accent, I'm not from South Tennessee. I'm from Spain originally. So having moved to this country on my own and not knowing anyone, not even knowing the language when I first moved here, I had to reinvent myself. I have to find a career. I didn't have the help of a parent or an uncle or anyone around me. So I needed to develop those relationships. And that's one of the advice that I give young colleagues of mine when they join the organization on sign up for interns is relationships are the nature of your success. And I'm not saying any relationship whatsoever. I'm saying through connections and through relationships. You gotta nurture them. You gotta take care of them and work them through the years, because at some point doors are gonna close, doors are going to open, and you'll need to rely on those people and those people who believe in you. So having or finding those mentors along the way was critical for my success and taking me where I am today. I wouldn't be who I am without that help along the way, and still it's people that when I have even personal news, they're the first one I call and say, hey, get this. So it's beautiful to, in a way, create your own family outside of your very own or the one that you didn't choose, you were born into. So I would say it's critical, yeah.
Cristina, just a curiosity question as a follow-up. What prompted you to move to the US and when did you do that?
So I came for my year abroad, my junior year. I was based on my degree. I had to spend 1 year abroad, and I could have gone to Europe or a speaking country in Europe, but I thought it was, hey, if I'm gonna move somewhere, let's move the farthest away that I can. Sorry, Delaney, but Canada was slightly too cold for me to go there, even though I ended up engaged to a Canadian. So, but yeah, I moved for 1 year, and it was my first year away from home, and it opened my eyes. I realized the world is incredibly big. It has a lot of opportunities. Meeting people from all around the world was just like a spectacular gift. And I was so energized by it and so pumped by it that when I got home for my senior year, I was like, I'm sorry, Mom and Grandma, I'm not staying. I'm leaving again. And bless them, they've been incredibly encouraging throughout the 15 plus years that I've been now away from home. And they're my source of comfort whenever things go bad, which for those young people listening is not a bed of roses. It definitely has its highs and lows. But yeah, I came for my year abroad, and then after that I returned for my master's, got a green card, and was able to stay. I now have my citizenship. So yeah, it's been a journey, but it's been a very empowering and educational journey, which I'm incredibly grateful for.
That's another great message for those of you who are watching this. I mean, that takes a whole new brand of courage to do that, and look where Cristina is now. I mean, kudos to you, and just another message for our audience that don't be afraid to do anything. You know, I mean, give it a shot.
Try it. Yeah. You can always, I say, try it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and go do something else. But I think and this will sound cliche, but the more you read about the latest stages of life and you looking back at life, you'll realize that the things you remember are the things that you'll never be disappointed of, is the things that you try, but the things that you didn't, right? You'll be disappointed at, maybe I should have done this, or maybe I should have done that. So having not so much of maybe sometimes perhaps women were incredibly self-conscious and hard on ourselves. I always joke as I'm my worst critic, and part of it is because of that fear of failure or not taking risks. And the more I've gone through my career and life is, look, there are going to be failures, but things happen for a reason, and you learn through those failures and you evolve and mature through them, and opportunities will continue to come. So just leave it for what they come, learn it, and then take it and apply it into your next experience.
It's great. Kristene, did you have something to say? I feel like I cut you off when I...
Oh, no, you're fine. All I was going to say was, well, one, I definitely appreciate Cristina, because I left the U.S. Virgin Islands at 16 and never came back. So I totally understand that and understand what that is. I was also just going to say for the young folks listening on this call that it's important to have a mentor, but also to have a sponsor. A sponsor is someone who can create opportunities for you when you're not in the room. They can put your name out there to say, hey, I know this opportunity is coming available. Let me recommend Cristina for this opportunity. Both are critical to your success, but it is important to have a mentor and a sponsor, because a mentor is more of like, provide advice, support. That sponsor is the person who can speak for you when you're not in the room. So just wanted to add that in there.
That's great input. It's been the Cristina show for a minute. I'm going to skip over. No, it's a compliment. I don't mean that.
I love the Cristina show and the Kristene show.
I love the Cristina
and the Delaney show.
I always say that
the Cristina show.
I'm going to deviate from the run of show for a minute. I'm going to come back to you, Cristina, but we're going to go to Ashlee with the next question. So, Ashlee, what challenges do you face, and what do you wish you knew before you faced the challenge? I mean, what I'm saying.
I think when I was watching the Cristina show, I was thinking, I think something that I didn't know is that I didn't know it was okay to fail. You hear it all the time. You're like, you're going to learn from your failures. And I was never really taught that it was okay to fail. It wasn't that, it was not an option. And so I think that has been something personally and professionally that I have probably been learning about myself over the past couple of years. And I mean, I'm 36 and I feel like, I'm just now learning that. And I think that has been so important. And in that too, just being completely honest. And that is with my team, that is with my leaders, and knowing that honesty and having just a true and honest conversation in an effort to just be better overall, like it is okay to say what you need to say. So I'm learning all of these things, and it quite frankly has helped me just through different challenges, whether it's prioritizing or change or just trusting people. I'm definitely in sort of this season of my life where all of these things are kind of coming together, and it's paying off in a good way. So I'm thankful personally and professionally that's kind of coming together for me so that I can just continue to move forward where, yes, there are always going to be challenges, but I feel like right now I do have the tools to kind of get through some of those things.
That's awesome. One thing that resonated with me that you said, people avoid difficult conversations with so much, and it takes so much energy to do that. Have a difficult conversation. Yes. I will tell you that on the other side of a difficult conversation, 9.9 times out of 10, you're going to feel a lot better. Yeah. And don't run from it. Don't have that sort of weird feeling that, I just saw Ashlee in the hall and that was uncomfortable. Have the conversation, because it's not that hard to do. It's part of being a grown-up, and you're going to feel better on the other side of it. So what about others and challenges that you faced and how you navigate through those? I feel that I have unintentionally squelched Cristina. I think she wants to answer, but she won't because she's afraid I'm going to call it the Cristina show. Cristina, we all love the Cristina show. Yes. It was simply a detour from the run of show. That's all I was doing.
No, I honestly, I guess so. Like, no, I want to hide. Yeah.
No.
I would say for us here at Vanderbilt, and I think just in college athletics as a whole, the challenges are the fun part of the job because we don't know what happens day to day. You can always say, here's what I plan to do today. Here's my checklist. And then you walk in and a pipe has busted, or a student, for whatever reason got in trouble and you need to change some things, or a coach needs to meet right now because it's really important. And I have to have this conversation about why I couldn't sleep last night, whatever. I'm just making up some things right now. But honestly, that's the fun part of our job, is that there are challenges that come about. And then on top of that too, it's okay to not know it all. And I think particularly as women, we want to feel like we know it all, we're experts in everything, but we all can't be experts. It's okay to ask for help and not feel as if you're going to be treated or perceived as lesser than. And I think, as Ashlee said, it's okay to speak up. It really is. And to be yourself, be who you genuinely are, because I always say you can only be who you're not, but for so long before the real you comes out. So why not just be the real you from day one? And you're not going to always like it, or people aren't going to always like you. There's a book that I'm reading now called The Likability Trap. And I suggest it to anyone, any of our women that are watching this panel right now. It's an awesome book that just talks about, as women, we focus so much about being liked and not really understanding that there's a great part of you that deals with warmth. And then there's another part of you that deals with strength. And sometimes as women, people want us to be one or the other, because if you're too strong, you're perceived as that other word that I won't say. And if you're too warm and caring, you're perceived as being weak and not being a leader. So there are all those different facets that comes into it in terms of challenges in our business. But be who you are, be genuine, and don't be afraid to speak up.
And I love what you said about don't be afraid to be wrong. You're not expected to know everything. A humble leader is the best leader, in my opinion. You don't want someone who, even if they don't know something, they pretend that they do. I mean, humility is such an important trait in leadership. Back to challenges. Delaney, you faced your own challenge. I mean, it's a very happy life event challenge, but you had a baby at the beginning of the pandemic, and you used that in a very positive way to sort of step back and not reinvent yourself, but reinvigorate yourself.
Yeah, definitely. When you mention challenges, the first thing that I think about is where are we at with getting a female coach into the men's game. So we've got a lot of male coaches, head coaches in the women's game at the NCAA level, at the national team levels. Where are we in terms of getting our first female coach in the National Hockey League? Do we have that in other sports, football, basketball, et cetera? And I think my husband and I talk about this all the time. We're like, you know, am I ready for that? Am I ready to ask for that? Where am I at in my life? Can somebody else do it? What will that look like? How much hate is involved in that? How do you protect your family from the hate and the criticism of that? Am I big enough and am I strong enough? You know, like, can I get out there and I know the game, you know, so you get a little bit of insecurities, but overall, I think the biggest challenge I have right now is really addressing that. Where are we at with female coaches in the National Hockey League? Is that something we need to consider? That's a big one. And I really want to just throw it out there because it is important to start discussing, but it's exciting, but it's also a big challenge for me and my family when we think about stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's obviously something very topical for us. We talk about that all the time, whatever the role is, coaching, scouting, whatever, you know, it's something that is top of mind for us, and candidly, it's something that we need to continue to focus on and make happen quite soon. Cristina, I want to ask you an organizational challenge. So it's if you've been awake and living in Nashville for any period of time in the last year or so, you've seen the very public back and forth about how difficult it's been in some ways to get the soccer stadium going and to keep it moving along. Organizationally, how have you guys dealt with that challenge? And, you know, how has that affected morale? And how great must it feel that it's moving right along now?
Yeah, we have incredible leadership above us and our ownership. I can speak highly enough of Mr. Ingram, his family, and the commitment that they have to the club, the organization, and the sport, and the growth of the sport, and not just that, but also the city of Nashville. It's been proven throughout the years and decades of their impact across the city of Nashville and our region. And this is just another step to make our city better and to improve our city. And they're incredibly intentional about doing the right thing for Nashville. Or our owner, Mr. Ingram, he gets quoted several times saying, "I'm doing this for Nashville. I'm doing this in Nashville. I could have gone any other way, any other city in this country to bring a soccer team into." And he chose Nashville because he believed in our city and in improving our city. So it comes from that, and then it cascades down into the organization. But when you believe in what, as a company, you believe in what you're creating and what you're doing, it makes things easy in a way. Needless to say, there are going to be the challenges that you experience, but you treat them understanding that there is a why. And there's the importance of knowing the reason behind why you're doing something is critical to getting things done.
Yeah, so true. Okay, now I'm coming back to you with a directed question, Cristina. Okay. We're sticking with you. So what skills do you believe are important to succeed as a woman in this industry? What specific skill sets have you seen that translate into success?
It's funny because as I was thinking about it last night and I was typing notes and whatnot, as we have gone through the chat, I mean, a lot of the skills has already been mentioned. Or so I think it tells exactly, if you've been paying attention to the conversation, like items or skills like being true to yourself that Delaney and Kristene mentioned is critical. Don't try to be somebody who you're not. Be honest to who you are. I think as women, as I believe Delaney mentioned, in a world of men, you try to fit in, and sometimes it's critically important that you show who you are. You bring I think diversity brings that much power to organizations. Having different type of backgrounds and opinions make a an organization more holistic. So just trust who you are. Don't try to be an imposter, because that's constantly going to show up in your career. If you don't truly trust yourself and who you want to be, you can evolve, because you're constantly stuck in that little box that you're creating for yourself. We chatted about creating your network of mentors, and Kristen had a brilliant point with not only having a mentor, but having sponsors and people who believe in you and put your name in the right place. The only reason why I'm sitting in this chair today is because a person I work with on a project at my previous job has worked with my CEO, Ian Eyre, and as Ian was looking for somebody to be in my position, she recommended my name. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. So it's really important. Again, those relationships are critical. Don't be afraid to fail. We've said that. So make sure that you take risks. And something that is also very important is your integrity. And Ashlee mentioned this, how you carry yourself and do the right thing. You give your 100%, and you'll never be disappointed by at least having shown up and given your all. I think it's super important that you don't hide from your mistakes. One thing that we pride ourselves in our company, and I've always actually, to people who are working within my team or who are upcoming, I said, don't be afraid to tell me you made a mistake. I'm the very first one who shares it and even when they don't need to know that I made a mistake, I make it public and I let them know so they can see that I'm not perfect, even though don't tell my fiance, because I keep telling him I am. But owning your mistakes shows a lot of character, because and the integrity that you need to keep moving. Because if you hide that, eventually it's going to be found out, and it just shows that you lack character. So owning your mistakes and walking with that integrity will always open a path of people will trust you, which is critical in business. And yeah, I think taking on challenges, particularly for those young people or the audience who are starting their careers right now, as you enter a new job, etc., don't wait for people to tell you what to do. If you have extra time, or if you are given opportunities, etc., continue to be curious, ask questions, network through the time that you have, and identify potential areas in the business in which you can offer a solution or brainstorm a solution, but constantly try to be engaged in the business as a whole, and in how you can grow within the business by taking more challenges.
Cristina, I love your perspective. I mean, I think that I could really listen to you all day. The thing I'm going to take away from this, and those of you who are listening who work with me, I'm sorry, but you're going to hear this again. Don't be an imposter. I love it. Don't be an imposter. You know, I think so many of the things that you just focused on, relationships, integrity, character, unbelievably important, non-negotiable. Those things have to be a part of your infrastructure in order to be successful. So
Michelle,
awesome perspective. Yeah.
To jump on that too, thinking about the relationships for sure, and something that is just that I just feel very strongly about is the communication piece. And Cristina, you touched on it, but understanding who you're speaking to and making sure that you're communicating in a way that they can receive you. And that does not mean change. That does not mean less than, but that is something that I think is a very important skill for people to learn. And it has taken me a long time to learn it, where, and Michelle knows this, and Cristina, you might've seen it. Like, I come in very excited, very hot, very quickly, But I think I also understand that sometimes people might only see that and they're not able to hear what I want to communicate to them. So being very mindful of who you're communicating to and adapting so that you're making sure that you are getting through to someone very clearly. I think that that's super important in no matter what field you're working in.
Very true. All right, we're going to transition to we have about 15 minutes left. So we're going to transition to some of the questions that were sent in before. So I'm going to lob these up and anybody just grab it. Anybody, all of you. So a lot of folks have weighed in and talked about having lost their job due to COVID and whether that hurts them professionally. I'm going to offer my perspective on this real quick and then ask you guys to chime in. I don't want anyone who had to take a break from this industry because of COVID to be afraid to re-engage in this industry. Right now, I mean, we've had this conversation so many times. We are filling positions, and as we fill them now, we think that the funnel is so much more robust. We think there are so many great people out there who are ready to get back, and they're going to be like Delaney was when she came back from her extended absence from hockey. They're going to be fired up. They're going to be so excited. They're going to be so engaged. And so I am pleading with you to jump back in with head first. Do not leave this industry because of the reprieve that you may have had to take over the last few months. We're excited to welcome you back. So come on.
And that's assuming you want to, and it's okay not to want to as well. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's so much fun. It's the best. It's all the things. But if it is something, I mean, hopefully you had an opportunity if you did lose a position to reevaluate. And if you do jump back in, also be okay if maybe you want to start exploring another option within the industry. I think that that's important too.
Diversifying I think is critical in your role. And as you continue to have these moments of, again, I've been let go. My company has gone under business. So I've been in that position a few times in my career. Just take that time to improve yourself. Read, learn, take on courses, grow as an employee. Like the fact that you are not working actively doesn't mean that you cannot work on yourself and your game. And then at the same time, diversify your portfolio, right? Maybe this gives you an opportunity to learn an area of the business that, because you were so centered in PR and working for a team, for example, in my case, you weren't maybe looking at the opportunity of working in PR for the sport with a sponsor and learning a whole new way of how the sport operates. So again, look for other avenues. There are perhaps avenues that you're not looking into.
And sometimes it can be a fresh opportunity to kind of pivot. It doesn't necessarily need to be looked at always in a negative, because I'm someone that I lost my job fully when COVID hit, working in sports and live events. I became literally the most non-essential person in the world, but it's given me new opportunities of just, okay, take some steps back, check in with myself, see what I need, but then where can I start that's maybe new? How can I look at this as a new opportunity? So, Michelle, I want to ask you the next question, because we did get quite a few of these. What do you look for? And then everyone can feel free to chime in. What do you look for in a resume and in a cover letter? And alternatively, what are some really big no-nos that you've seen?
Yeah, it is, in my view, in having a conversation with people who are trying to get into this business or any business, it is irresponsible not to address this question, because you would be astounded how many times I've seen a cover letter that says, I am so excited about working for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And my reaction is to drop it in the trash and wish them well with the Pittsburgh Penguins. I mean, just my input on this topic is so elementary. Proofread. Ask your buddy to proofread. Be in your cover letter, be everything that Cristina told us to be. Be genuine, show integrity, show character. Make it different. Don't go Google cover letter and cut and paste that. Make it uniquely you. Make it stand out. Make it something that is going to make me remember you in a pile of 150 or 350 or resumes I'm going to look at and cover letters I'm going to read. But the absolute, all of it's important. But if you misspell, I've had people misspell the street they live on. And I hope that person is with the Pittsburgh Penguins right now having a great career. But just, I mean, really, really simple stuff. And this is another thing I could go on about all day. So I'm going to shut up and let other people chime in here.
That is so critical, Michelle. And we see it all the time here on the collegiate side of things, because, obviously we're in the Power Five. Everyone is where I want to be. It's the biggest place. Well, here's the thing, particularly with COVID, there are more people than there are jobs. So the slightest error gets you moved to the side. The slightest, I want to apply to Vanderbilt College. Well, where's Vanderbilt College? That's a small, and to some people, it may just be a tiny error, but that tiny error says to me, if you're applying for a job in sports information or media relations, that tiny error can be a big issue in something else that you do later on. So as Michelle says, make sure you proofread, spell people's names right. My name gets butchered every single day of the week. A slight Google will tell you how to spell my name correctly. I'm just being completely honest there. And back to, to the other point about like COVID and resumes and all that stuff. Sometimes you're moved out of a situation to move up. So use that situation to, like you said, reevaluate yourself and figure things out. But in terms of resumes, what makes you stand out? I can Google and see what a deputy athletic director does. I don't need you to list what your job responsibilities are. What I need to see is some of the successes that you've had. How do you, separate yourself? So I think that's critical. And again, that goes back to that sponsor, because if Michelle's looking through 350 resumes and somebody calls and says, hey, you may want to take a look at Cristina, and if she has a relationship with that person, Michelle may just look at Cristina's resume. I'm just telling you how the world works. That's just reality.
That's an excellent point. There's nothing more important. And I say this business, it happens in every business, but in our business, 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon is alive and well. And if you know someone and they think highly of you, and I get a call from someone that I know and think highly of, that is gigantic. It's absolutely gigantic.
I think something that's really important in this industry specifically, and I learned this really quickly when I started at the Preds, was you will get so many, it doesn't matter where you're working within an organization, you receive a resume and so much of it is very generalized. I want to work in sports and entertainment. I want to work in sports and entertainment. I beg you not to do that. That is something where that shows you haven't done your research of exactly what you want to do. And so that's where you pick up the phone to your mentor, to a sponsor, to someone, start asking the questions and try to figure out for yourself, what does it mean to work in sports and entertainment? Yes, every department works, together. It is something that once you get in, you'll start learning how the, the machine works, but be specific when you get in there as much as you can. You're not going to know everything, obviously, but try not to generalize sports and entertainment as just the big fun, industry that you want to get in, because that is something that immediately is a turnoff. It's okay. You don't know what you want to do. You just want to have the shiny title that comes along with that.
So next question, we don't have too much time left, but I want to open up the floor for you ladies. I feel the movement with women right now. It's happening in our industry. It's happening in male prevalent industries all across the world. But even though there is a movement, we're all moving forward, having these conversations, you still have to advocate for yourself. You still have to be your own champion. So what are ways that you advocate for yourself being a woman in sports? Delaney, maybe we'll start with you and then whoever wants to chime in.
Yeah, sure. It's critical to advocate for yourself. I do this like by basically asking myself every day is to have a ton of courage. I'm not afraid to state that I think I know a lot about hockey and I had a great hockey experience growing up. So, that's really critical is to step out there and be a little bit vulnerable, but really state my value understand my value financially, understand my value to the sport, whether it's male or female. But it's a tough one. It's critical. We're in a changing time. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for females. If those opportunities come along, you're exactly right. I need to step up. I need to advocate for myself. I'm more than willing to, but it is tricky. It is hard. And it is an interesting time.
Katie, I'm going to put a little bit of a spin on this answer. I think the most important form of advocacy is self-advocacy. Don't let you convince yourself that you can't do anything. Advocate for you, with you. I mean, that, as I said before, there's nothing in this entire spectrum of this industry that any woman can't do. And so you have to make yourself believe that. And it's not just the words, it's really believing it. So advocate for yourself, with yourself. And I think a lot comes after that. I mean, that may sound kooky to some of you, but I believe it with every fiber of my being. You've got to convince yourself first, and a lot comes next. A lot comes after that, naturally.
Well, in branching off that, a lot of the conversations that we had earlier were about networking, and we got quite a few questions about that, especially if you directed with LinkedIn, because women were saying, I've sent messages, I don't hear back. So what are some of the important ways that you ladies have found connecting with people in the industry? For me, Twitter's been a really big one, but then also just cold calling and cold emailing and introductions saying, hi, my name's Katie. This is what I'm doing. Just wanted to introduce myself, and not necessarily going in with a motive yet, just starting to build that relationship. And then once that's built, eventually you're able to ask for more help. But what do you ladies think?
I'll say Twitter has been big for me. So I am a pretty big social media person, and I have quite a, and this is not to make myself sound like I'm anything, but I do have quite a bit of people who say, hey, I follow you on Twitter. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. Didn't realize that. And I try to champion other people. So my background is in PR, sports information. So I'm always about pushing other people out there. So if I see someone is following me and they've got a new position or whatever, I'm retweeting it. I'm adding a little comment to it or whichever, because I do recognize that I have a slight reach. So with that, I'm trying to help other people. But in terms of connections, I will be honest, I'm probably one of those people who people reach out to on LinkedIn who does not respond, just because I'm not on LinkedIn as often. So you have to try to your point, Katie, whether it's to make cold calls or have that person reach out. I had someone who wanted my opinion about a job, and a friend of theirs who was a friend of mine called me to ask would I speak to that person. And that's how I was able to get to that person. But sometimes we get so busy, and it's not that we're being intentional about not responding or anything like that. Our jobs are just pretty busy, and it takes quite a bit of time. One thing that I've learned, and I'll share with this group. So on Fridays between 12:30 and 4, I have that blocked out as my kind of like mentorship time or return calls time. So obviously if there's something important that happens at work that I need to do, I can do it. But I try to have that time just blocked off so that I can return calls, return emails, and try to be that connection for someone, because it's easy for our entire calendars to get filled pretty quickly. So that's one of the ways that I connect.
I'll jump in real quick just to say with LinkedIn, that's okay. With LinkedIn, I think it's very important to, I think I've already said this, but be intentional. I think I get people who want to connect with no messages. If someone writes me a specific message, I'll say, here's my email, shoot me an email, and let's chat. I try to do that as much as I can. I need to follow Kristine's lead and mark some time in my calendar, because I find that I'll schedule something and keep having to move it. But I think that what you will find is that people genuinely want to help you. So when you're, reaching out, be intentional about that, and someone can receive that and know, hey, this person's really interested in what I'm doing. Let me make some time to just talk to them. So don't be scared to reach out either. But if you do, be intentional, and also be ready for a response, so that you're not, kind of like a deer in headlights, like, okay, what do I ask? What do I do? So.
And to your point, Ashlee, earlier, sorry, you mentioned something that when you're chatting, when you're having those conversations, know what you're asking for, even with your resume, with your cover letter. Don't just talk about, oh, I want to work in sports and entertainment. How do I get there? No, do your homework, be prepared, decide what you want to do, and then reach out and say, hey, what is your advice on here and here? Be specific, because to everybody's comments, time is of essence and it's valuable. And if I'm going to be spending 30 minutes with you, I want to make sure that I'm making a difference for the conversation for you. So being generic won't help you in any way.
Cristina just said time is valuable, and it is, and we are respectful of that. And we just crossed the 10 o'clock mark. So any final comments that any of our panelists have, and then I'll throw some buzzwords around and we'll wrap up and get on with our day. So anything any of you guys have?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think it's important that moving forward in our industry that you have a lot of courage and love. It's a combination. You got to love what you do, because whether your path is easy or whether your path is tough, you sure want to love it. And then let's all step up and have the courage. We're amazing women. We're inspiring, and courage is critical.
Thank you, Delaney. Who's up next?
All I'll add is there's a special place. Madeline Albright said there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. I'll say there's a special place in heaven for women who help other women. So if you're in a position of influence, of authority, and you can help another woman, it's our responsibility to do that. So that's my thought. And if I can help in any way, I absolutely will, but you can't embarrass me either. So if I'm going to help you, that's my name on the line on top of that too. So you got to come correct.
I love that. I would say gut check, go with it. Always go with your gut, be honest, and just what Delaney said, just be confident and know, because you already checked in with your gut and you're being honest. I like it.
There you go.
Closing comments, the Cristina Show, wrap us up.
Oh, no, I shouldn't have that honor of privilege in a way. Believe in yourself. To everything, I think Delaney, Kristine, and Ashlee said it properly. And then if I can reiterate, believe in yourself and set goals. You won't get anywhere without setting goals for yourself. So set them, follow them. That's your roadmap.
You guys are awesome. I have loved hanging out with Cristina, Delaney, Kristine, and Ashlee and Katie this morning. It's been absolutely unbelievable. For those of you watching, this is a wonderful time to be engaged in doing what you're doing. There is so much more awareness and intentionality around integrating women into sports than there ever has been. Take advantage of it. As I said, advocate for yourself, with yourself, and come on. We can't wait to welcome you to this industry. And I'm going to close with my favorite Cristina line from the day: don't be an imposter. Thanks for being here. Give us feedback. Tell us what we did good, what we did not so well. And as I said, we will get some of these questions and answers to you, because I know we just scratched the surface of what you guys sent in. So thanks for being so engaged. Thank you to your panelists. This is a big virtual hug for all of us. Have a great Friday and a great weekend, and go Preds.
Oh, Michelle, you rock so hard. Cristina, Delaney, Ashlee, Kristine, Michelle, I just can't thank you all enough. What an empowering hour. I could have listened to this for 4 more hours, but to our attendees, thank you again so much for joining us today for a conversation with women in sports. If you would like to re-watch today's event or share it, please visit the website in the next couple days. That is www.nashvillepredators.com/womeninsports. And be sure to keep an eye out for an email from a Preds representative announcing the winner of the Hermitage Smashville experience. And go Preds!